And IATI infrastructure is not an easy one to understand because some of it, we had 21 tools. I learned when I first came in that we had 21 of them. So it's very important to appreciate our tools, understand our tools. We wanted to hear from you. The purpose of this discussion is to hear from you how you find our IATI infrastructure usable, easy to use, intuitive, and we wanted to improve it as much as we can so that you have a fantastic user experience. So this is the purpose. That's what is driving us, so you know. And give us your honest, great opinions and suggestions, including offers to work with us, which we welcome them very well. Now, we have two presenters. One will be ODS, our own secretariat team, and they would be sharing with you the kind of improvement that they have been making to try and make your life as easy as it gets, both for the publishers as well as the users. And then they will share their perspective on what is working and so on and so forth. And then we invited Professor Kuz, whom we had the pleasure of working the last 1 year in doing a research about IATI data tools. And he's been experimenting with our tools and giving us 2 reports that are amazing. And our work was a collaboration between the University of Korea and UNDP Seoul office. We are truly grateful for the work that he has put in together. If you like the reports, they are available. They will be uploaded in our website. Feel free to do so. Last point. The last point I wanted to make is that this discussion today that we are going to have is not going to be the last one. So if time is short and you feel you haven't given us enough feedback, rest assured we'll be organizing many other meetings on this particular topic, simply because for the next 5 years, we're developing an infrastructure roadmap for IATI, which would then continuously inform our investments in our infrastructure. So this is the background. This is the objective we wanted to achieve. You're giving us enormous feedback going forward. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Yemi. Thank you, everybody. I hope the day has been good so far. So I want to talk very briefly, really, about some improvements to the IATI infrastructure that are coming through next week. But before we do that, I want to give some context, first of all. So the challenge is really about IATI and all its tools and infrastructure is we must remember it's been 15 years of there being different tools, different decisions happening over time. And what that means really is that we have a series of tools and data sets and data pipelines that are not quite connected, that look different. And then that means there's quite a disjointed relationship between us, the tools, and each other. So we came into this mix. It's not to blame anything. It's just an occurrence of many things happening over time. So what we have a strategy to do is really literally the opposite. Join the data pipelines and the tools together, make them look similar and behave similar. And then let's work on the relationships that we can gather through this. I had a really good conversation with a colleague from Gambia about how do I contact someone who publishes IATI data. Currently, that's quite hard to do so. So we really want to make this platform, improve this platform so we can make those relationships more direct and happen. So thinking first of all about the data that some of you publish and then how that makes its way into the tools. On the left-hand side is how it used to be. You'd have one tool and it would bring data in one way. Another tool would have another method, a third tool a different way. And it was really quite a lot to understand and quite a lot to support. People would ask, why is this tool showing this and this tool showing that, X, Y, blue, red? So we thought, okay, we really need to, on the right-hand side, unify this. And we brought it through last year. We called it the bulk data download. In effect, every day we bring all the IATI data together in one place, and then the tools all use that same data source. So it sounds quite simple, but it was a bit of a game to make that happen, but it's now happening in all the tools that we know about are using the bulk data download. So that's good news. That's good news. We could clap that. Thank you. Second thing was we were finding that things like the IATI registry, the IATI dashboard, they were showing different numbers, and they were really important numbers for us. And that's because again they were built slightly differently, doing different things. So our objective coming next week is we're going to unify these two things together so they show the same thing. I'll talk about that in a moment. But again, it's an iteration on the bulk data download that the tools will act the same way. Rob gave me this graph. I think he made it up, but so it's this idea of technical debt. The more the debt goes up, the more we have different tools and different pipelines, the more difficult and cumbersome it is to support them. So as we in fact get rid of some of the tools, we unify them, we combine them, we've got less to support and less to maintain, which should mean less debt. Thank you, Rob, for that one. He's got another image coming up later that's funnier. A thing that we've been doing this year, we talked about it in Colombia. We recognize, why does dportal look this way? Why does CDFD look that way? Why do they all look so differently? This one IATI, isn't it? So we had put together what we call the IATI design system. And the design system makes sure each tool looks the same, behaves the same. And so we put that together this year. This is on the left is how dportal used to look. On the right is how dportal looks now. That's great. But that looks the same in terms of the IATI dashboard, how it used to look, how it looks now. And all the tools now are using this design system. And it also means we can improve the design system in a central place, and the tools can then be improved much more efficiently than one after another after another. So again, we promised this last year, and it's in place, operation. A small round of applause, please. Thank you. And again, the consistent design and UX to these tools, they're all looking very similar, but it means we can also navigate people very clearly between things. Often we would get a support request to say, I was on dportal and then I ended up somewhere else. I got very confused. Now with the design system, we can make sure you know where you are, you know where you want to be. Simple things, but it's taken a little while to get this together and going. And sorry, the other side to this one is the documentation we've been writing too. So lots of the tools had their own help manuals, PDFs or other things. So we centralized all the documentation about the tools so you could read about the tools, not just in the same look and feel, but in the same way as well. And a shout out to Isabel and Emma, who are maybe watching online. They spent a lot of time this year rewriting the documentation. Yeah. And what that also means is that because we've centralized all the documentation, we can publish it in the same way. We can translate it as well. So the IATI validator has documentation and interface in English, French, and Spanish. And that's the technology that we put together to make that happen very efficiently and clearly so that we can not just rely on English, but we can give the interface and support in different languages as well. Okay, nearly there. Coming next week is another thing that we've been working on, and it's about this idea of one account for IATI. So right now, you log into the registry, you log into Publisher, people lose their passwords, people move on, and it gets very confusing about this issue. So moving on, we've got together a single sign-on, it's called. You have one account, you can log into all the IATI services through this. And at the back end of this, we have what's called a customer relationship management tool. There's a plaster that we've had to pull off, and I think it's going to work. So yeah, next week there'll be a one account. You'll sign into IATI. You'll be able to access your services to publish your data, but also you'll be able to sign in to the IATI Publisher tool. And we're already talking this week about other ways you can sign in with your IATI account to access other things. And this is really unifying the infrastructure so we have less fragmentation and less noise. Okay. So the connecting the data together, making them look and feel the same, having this connected relationship, the one login, really this means that we can have a lot of work towards, at the top, our newly approved strategic plan, but all the things that we care about, improving the data having integrated data use, etc., etc. So for me, it's just to point out that the things we're doing is putting more building blocks in place for the next 5 years. So as I mentioned, next week, we thought we were going to do it this week, but we thought, no, let's do it next week. Next week is when we're switching things around. So you may not be able to log in. There'll be some things, but we're all ready. There's a very, very, very detailed plan. What happens by the hour on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll keep you informed. I think it'd be really great by the end of next week, maybe the week after, that everything is settled and ready, and we can start to use this one account, this new platform, etc. And thinking forward, what's really important too to us is that we're building this infrastructure so that we can build things on top of it. So Gary in LinkedIn, was it Gary? Gary shared a video how you're trying to using IATI data with ChatGPT, and it worked with CDFD to do various things. It was really interesting. Thank you, Gary, for this. Thank you, first of all. We think having this unified platform, this infrastructure, will enable us all to build these types of things, but talk more coherently about them as well. So thank you, Gary, for this, and we recognize and want to acknowledge that this is where we want to go with this too. Lastly, the cat, sorry. So last year at the Members' Assembly, I asked AI to draw me a cat. Looked very confused, a cat that looked very confused about the standard. This year, we asked AI to generate a cat excited about the possibilities that AI has unlocked in the use of international development data. And here's the cat. It looks excited or still quite worried, I don't know. But AI has come on a lot. I thought that was Simon there. So yeah, that's where we are. I think that's it from me. Next week is the first part of the strategic plan, and on we go. Thank you.
All right, colleagues, thank you very much, Stephen. Really, I think this is a work that took a long time, gestation, so much investment, so much effort. I really wanted to thank ODS for the great work being done, and it was going to make you happy as a publisher and data users. That's our main goal. So we shall be doing that in next week and beyond. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Cruz, and he will be sharing with us the research he has done, the way he interacted with our tools, the experience he had, and what he thinks is good to look into going forward. Professor Cruz?
So I am an American, but I teach at Korea University, where I'm the head of the Development Futures Lab, where we're looking at sort of macro historical and micro practical applications of emerging technologies in development. This research was funded by the UNDP Seoul Policy Center, where one team is trying to build an ecosystem of AI forward tools for use within the UNDP system. And their initial inclination, which is the natural one, was to use the IATI data. Unfortunately, for their purposes, they ran into difficulties a little too quickly, and then asked us to take a look at the data, primarily dPortal, and to try to identify areas where enhancements could be delivered. And so to that extent, my team came to IATI and the IATI ecosystem from a kind of naive external position, so which may have its own value, but it also should highlight our own sort of general ignorance along the way, I think, actually, because I've definitely been humbled being here the last couple of days and learning just how complex and complicated this IATI ecosystem is, and how much you all have been bringing to this program. So you should be commended for sure. And I want to thank the IATI Secretariat for helping us conduct this research, for connecting us with different individuals that helped us do it, for reviewing our report in detail and usefully, and for inviting me here today to talk to you. So our general framework is the Open Data Watch's data value chain, because as we know, data itself, as an academic, it's inherently interesting. But really, in the end, we want data to inform decision making and have practical applications. And so what this Open Data Watch data value chain framework does is it traces the social production of data from the collection of raw data through the publication of pre-processed data into its uptake by users and decision makers, and then eventually its impact on the world. And through this process, the value of that data increases, because it really, in the end, doesn't mean anything if it isn't changing the world around us, right? So to do our analysis, we had a mixed methods approach to things. We did a review of technical and technical documents. We conducted some structural interviews, but the method that we adopted that seems to have attracted the most interest was our scenario walkthroughs. And what we did for this was to begin with the idea that, of course, as we all know, different users of IATI data have different motivations and different goals for using that data. So we created a set of practical scenarios that we think reflect some of the efforts that some of you and perhaps others have tried to do to use the data. And then a member of my team tried to use dPortal to achieve the goals of these scenarios, screen recording it and giving a voiceover about his intentions with each move, the difficulties he faced, or the successes he achieved. And then we translated these into a flow chart for each of the scenarios that helped us to identify constraints, et cetera, et cetera. And then we processed this through a framework analytical framework for thinking about the quality of data that we don't have time to go into today, but will be in our report, which I am assured should be out sort of by the beginning of the new year at the latest. And we are happy to share it. And so let me get on to our findings, and then I'll give you a few provocative suggestions for where things might go forward. First, clearly there's been an enormous amount of improvement over the years. Second, and most importantly, it is, thinking about IATI, evaluating IATI is shooting at a moving target, right? Almost all of our work was done a year ago. And many of these problems that I'm about to identify have already either been addressed or are in the process of being addressed, which puts me in a very awkward position here. I've got to identify problems that you're like, yeah, we got it, we did it. But perhaps there's some value. I hope there's some value in this. So I think fundamentally, and perhaps most importantly, and something that I've been hearing over the last 2 days, is that at present, IATI is better for transparency than it is for aid planning. And so improvements in that direction are perhaps the most valuable. And what I feel I've been hearing, and what I would suggest as a initial prioritization would be on really developing a robust accounting of financial flows. I mean, it's obviously not the most important part of development. I mean, the impact is the most important part, but it is a common denominator among everyone who is almost everyone who is trying to use this data. So I think having a robust approach to financial flows ought to be a significant priority. Our other big finding, if there is such thing as a big finding, is that the project documents have been an underutilized asset for analysis, and that with a little bit of processing, those I think can be incredibly useful for thinking about development planning. And yes, it is time for Transparency 3.0. I really think this is imminent and that the future is bright. So I'm going to use, at the moment, I'm going to identify a few of the problems we identified and how you can actually see it in the database. And again, many of these have been dealt with or are being dealt with. For instance, a lack of project validation, which leads to mismatched or budget and expenditure recordings. But again, maybe this is something that Stephen just explained is not going to be an issue going forward. A lack of unique identifiers for activities, which I understand is generated primarily by the way that certain publishers publish their data. Incomplete data inputs, which is evidenced by missing data, irregular data inputs, which lead to missing data. I mean, of course, still quite clearly we know IATI is more timely, more useful than CRS if we're looking for immediate concerns, but it's, again, as has been recognized, not perfect here. Also in trying to use the API, we experienced significant delays in our SQL queries that made it a little difficult for us to imagine that it's really useful at a real-time kind of analysis. Additionally, there's a, oops, oh, perfect. Absence of standardized attribute constraints, which lead to inputs in different languages being located in Korea. For instance, we could see that the UNDP would be listed as UNDP, United Nations Development Program, UN Gebal Kewek, a whole assortment of different names. And so that, which makes it difficult to track those down. Lack of a clear roles among the tools, but I won't elaborate on that. There were also difficulties in viewing trends both in time and across regions, because you could only select individual countries and years. I think some of this has been addressed, and certainly the country development finance data has overcome much of this concern. We also ran into difficulties with the fragmentation of donor scales, right? Because you're going to want to know what are all of the agencies or all of the NGOs in a given country, say Korea, are providing to another given country. But which you could do at the time, you could do it if you knew what all of those agencies were, you could select them and you could get the aggregate data, but there was no tool for just selecting Korean organizations or Korean NGOs. Oops, not yet. Where were we? Same with this differentiation between single and multi-funder differentiation, which could lead to overestimation of budgets and what have you. And most of my team, and myself included, but they love visualizations, and we're not happy with the kind of static visualizations that were available. And then finally, we know that IATI itself faces a really pretty daunting challenge that its users and publishers probably vary to a great degree in their capacity to use the data. What I'd like to suggest a few, we've compiled this into our master chart, which will be available in our presentation, or in our paper, which is, again, coming out soon. But what I'd like to sort of close it with is what we call in academia kind of provocation, a few sort of dramatic suggestions for what might be done, so that you can perhaps chew on these as potential future Transparency 3.0. I recognize in advance that these are much easier to say than to do or to fund, but we think that this could improve the use of and the uptake for IATI in general. And these are three: centralization, LLM assisted input, and predictive modeling. First, we would suggest that the data itself should be, which to an extent is, should be centralized, which would allow for, if input of the data was centralized into a central data store or what have you, then that would allow for much more robust validation. That would allow for, I think, higher data quality in general. It would also perhaps facilitate the construction of a more robust back end that would lead to faster response times. And I think it would lower publishing costs for many users who may not be able to host the data themselves, who might not have the time or chops to parse it out into XML or what have you. So if there was a sort of centralized input piece, this could actually make it much easier for users to, for publishers to publish data. Second, to enhance that, we think that LLM assisted input tool would be useful. I mean, right, you're cutting down the number of tools, so I'm going to actually suggest building some new tools, right? And we saw this in the last panel. Checky, Dev Explorer are doing some of these parts of these pieces. And what more or less we believe should happen is that project documents, these underutilized assets, should be sort of ingested in one form or another to allow for better searchability and analysis, and used primarily to pre-populate the fields, right? A sort of that again could be used to, once the fields are pre-populated, the publishers could review that and just confirm, or make any alterations that need to be made, thereby lowering the amount of time, effort, and cost that it takes publishers to put it in, which would enhance IATI's role as a digital public good, right? It could also potentially flag discrepancies or missing data, or even perhaps absurd numbers, right? What is it? I heard some earlier, $80 billion transferred from the Ministry of Health to Chad or something like this. And it might also be a way to enhance interoperability if conversion tools are developed as well, having that input, having a centralized store for this data that could actually spit out the data in different formats. Again, easier said than done, but it would also, I think, serve as a digital public good that way. Finally, we would suggest trying to integrate some predictive modeling using integrated machine learning, which I have a team trying to work on right now, or other statistical models to try to project forward what will happen, which would again lead to better forecasting and better aid planning. And again, more robust data visualization, something perhaps along the lines of Gapminder or something like this, where users could interact much more with the data, which would allow them to create stronger communication tools. We heard in the last panel that exciting visualizations actually were very useful in the Netherlands and in generating interest in IATI and the data going forward. And I think it would, again, facilitate uptake by less sophisticated users, right? I mean, I'm a very visual person, so sometimes looking at the numbers or the statistical analysis with the standardized coefficients and whatnot doesn't sink in as deeply as just a nice, clear graph, right? That just lays it out in a visual way. So we think some work there would be advantageous. And so with that, I've probably taken more time than I should, and I thank you. I encourage you to read our report. And if you do have, I've concluded over the last 2 days that next semester in my introduction to development classes, I'm going to force my students to do some research using IATI. So if you have any ideas or inquiries and 6 months of patience, please contact us with your ideas. I'll see if I can't get some of my students working on it for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Coz. It's a great input for us because we truly valued this collaboration. And the last 2 reports that he shared with us were much more detailed than what we presented here. One goes in detail about the portal and so forth, because he really chose the portal and walked through user journey. If I'm a UNDP personnel who's keen to know who's giving what money in which sector and how I can, donor intelligence kind of thing, where does the portal take me? How far it can take me to do that analysis? If I'm a government official sitting in the Ministry of Finance, and I wanted to know who's investing in which sector, especially now when aid resources are becoming scarce, how far the portal take me, and where is the dead end? And clearly he identified lots of dead end for us in these tools. How far they took the person, the scenario, and that user journey, and where the limitations are. These are incredible inputs that we need to improve our tools going forward to make them fit for purpose, because we wanted to recommend, if you want, come and visit the portal. If you are ministry, the portal won't help you. In fact, CDFD will, or this other one do. For us to say that, we need to really start investing time and energy in user journeys, because that's what I loved most about what he did for us. User journeys. As many user journeys as possible we can collect, we can refine our tool, consolidate our tools to making them more relevant than ever. Now, having said that, the best tool we have at the moment looks like the portal. Close to 90,000 people visit it. So if 90 people come and visit the portal, we wanted to make them a happy 90,000 people, not a sad one, not the one that looks like too worried. So to that extent, we really look forward to your feedback. Please send us a feedback about our tools, how you feel about them as we consolidate your inputs in the next few months to try and construct our infrastructure roadmap. And the team, we take those in hand to try and make it a plan, an investment plan that we will be investing over the next 5 years to make the tools smarter and nicer and pleasant, and making them more intuitive as well, because we don't want IATI being difficult. We want IATI is easy is our motto for the next 5 years. So you will help us to make it happen. If you are keen to make our tools smarter, write us and work with us. We would love to do so. That's all from my end. The floor is open for you now to give feedback on the 2 presentations and broadly on IATI infrastructure to discuss. We have very few minutes, and I apologize for that, but at least we have 10 to 15 minutes to stay on. The floor is yours. Please, questions, comments, suggestions online, in person, it's all open.
I had a question for Professor Coz. Specifically, you mentioned that you were looking at the data like a year ago. Have you, in like a recent month, for example, have you done any checks on how does it compare between back then and now, or is that something that's still in the future?
Yeah, thanks. The easy answer is no. We haven't. We haven't looked at it more recently. And one thing that I did actually want to say is that one way to look at what I presented is as an example of just how far the ecosystem has evolved over the last year and how rapidly it has evolved, how dynamic this ecosystem is. Because so much of it is being addressed or has been addressed. But maybe I'll get my students on that next semester. Lots of user journeys.
Yes, we would love that. Yeah, wonderful. Now, again, the floor is yours now. Thank you so much for your patience.
Hey, hello, it's Elma from Publish What You Fund. Thanks everyone for your presentations. We also wanted to share a few quick insights from our own data use journey. So hopefully some of you heard Alex Tilley's presentation on our Girls Not Brides research. And I just wanted to share 3 additional sort of data use experiences we had from that, and hopefully also some sort of practical outputs from those. And I think that might overlap with Professor Cuz's work as well. So just quickly, that research was accessing data, IATI data from the different portals, and then just using SQL and Excel to do some not particularly high-level or advanced programmatic analysis, but just doing some sort of basic user access and then SQL on top. Some of the issues that we found from that, firstly to say we did some great research. Hopefully you saw the findings from Alex, but some of the findings of the issues we had from that have been addressed. One of them was being able to access text information in documents. So it was really great to see the AI responses to that in some of the other sessions. A second area we wanted to highlight, or I'd like to highlight, is the single IATI elements, which have multiple data points. We wanted to do a lot of analysis on the sectors and the participating organizations. But if you're accessing that information in Excel, particularly, that information to help split that out. And then finally, and hopefully I'm not throwing a giant spanner right at the end of the session because no one else has really mentioned this that I've heard, but was the issue of double counting. So just for those who aren't aware, if you have an agency like the UK Foreign Office publishing a certain amount of money, and then they send that money to UNICEF, UNICEF is also publishing that money. You don't want to add those amounts together if you have a use case like the Girls Not Brides use case that we had. We wanted to analyze total funds spent across the years. So we needed to split out the spend across the aid chain to make sure we weren't adding those together. And we actually ended up adding in levels within our data. So we had a level 1, which was the bilaterals, and a level 2, which was the multilaterals. But that was a very simple way of approaching the double counting issue. So we would like to perhaps suggest to the IATI Secretariat, it's a bigger issue perhaps for discussion, but how to assist data users in the future to understand that that's a more accurate way of looking at funding across the years. Thanks.
Thank you, Elma. Thank you so much. That's extremely useful. I think guidance, it's costly. When we don't improve it at the tool level and we leave it to help desk, people asking us so many questions, we're responding, do it, and so forth. If the NIC identifier has been an issue that has been coming many, many times, and we have heard it. So we are confirming we had many of your view. And of course, we are thinking through it, and Stephen probably would come later, but these are things we are taking into consideration as we move along. Yes, Babusha. And first here, I think, sorry, Zainab and Babusha. Apologies. Zainab.
Thank you so much, Professor, for the presentation. My quick question is related on, since the session is called IATI infrastructure, and we in the board, we were discussing a few days ago about how secure our data in IATI. Did you have?
I think we have to remember as well, it's great feedback and great things, but this is an operation every day that we're trying to keep the lights on. And we did talk yesterday about the minimal viable service product. So we've got to balance these things, the expectations and the reality, I think, sometimes. But the reality at the moment is it's not open data oftentimes. It's blocked, actively blocked. And we're battling with that every morning of every day, to trying to get back to organizations and say, okay, 10 years ago, it was great. We could get the data every morning. Everybody could. But now you're blocking us and blocking others. So we're experiencing new things, possibly because of security and other measures impacting on IATI's infrastructure.
Thank you, Stephen. Babusha,
Yeah. Okay, one thing that I want to bring it up, and thanks a lot, Stephen, for pointing out the color consistency, the design thing, and everything. For me, IATI has been a kind of ecosystem, right? So while we are talking about our roadmap for IATI infrastructure for next 5 years, I would also want to see where we would place in the tools and innovations coming out of community into this infrastructure, right? So because a lot of times, like we have crazy ideas and people have been experimenting. So I just want it not to be missed out. Like with single sign-ons for only the internal tools. And, I mean, there has to be a way we kind of incentivize innovators and ecosystem actors to actually come up with tools or whatever, so that we, at the end, kind of fulfill our objective of the data being used, right? So since I did not hear anything on that, I wanted to flag it out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other hands? Any other hands? Absolutely.
Thank you, Bibishan. Of course, yes. I think the focus that we had was about the central tools that we're responsible for to make that more coherent, first and foremost. But of course, we've seen, experienced, enjoyed tools in the ecosystem. That's always dear to our heart. So this is absolutely not to say those tools are invalid at all. This is why we get together to discuss these things, of course.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add on that, we are very keen on some of the tools that has been developed by some of you. For example, Dev Explorer. It's an amazing tool. We looked at it. We really liked it. I honestly, truly hope that will be a gift from FCDO to IATI one day, and it can function to the entirety of the IATI portfolio, analyzing things for all of us. Similarly, other tools that partners are interested to build them. Let's build them together and make them IATI premium tools. And that would make also members attracted to IATI. People ask me all the time, what do we gain from IATI being a member? So some premier services can be built as a tool, so that people can come to IATI knowing that that is premium access, and it will make their life easier if they are IATI members and they can use those tools. So you could help us to do some of these kind of things, and they will attract more members to IATI too. So it will be an incentive mechanism as well. So we are looking into the future, which is much more brighter, looking into innovations outside of the IATI own tool, but by others within the community that can be integrated into IATI's own space for people to use them more often. That's something I would like to add on. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else? You're helping me enormously if you are keeping quiet at this moment, but please do not keep quiet. Keep sending us the information by email. We're available. At this moment, my job in this session was to facilitate the conversation, kickstart the conversation, not end it here, but maintain the conversation going forward in the future, which I think we have created enough appetite to interact with us on IATI infrastructure going forward, knowing that we'll be very keen to invest on it in our action area B of the strategic plan. Please continue interacting with us. I wanted to thank primarily the presenters. Thank you very much. Thank you. You could go back. And I would like to thank all of you, members, community members, IATI members, for the last 2 days. This is my last appearance in this floor. So I wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you. Your contributions, your valuable input, your discussion, your active engagement. You traveled from all over the world to be here with us, and we value that. And we are very grateful for all the input that you gave us. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank also the interpreters who's been in that room quietly, not even breathing enough oxygen, but still keeping us going. Thank you. Thank you, the translators. And I wanted to also thank the entire hotel staff who's been kind, generous, good with us. And they also gave us a nice, good cake at the end to thank us. We thanked them, but they thanked us. So thank you very much, the hotel staff. Thank you. Last but not least, allow me to thank my own team. Team, I'm extremely proud of you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the great hard work. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And my last point is to invite our own chair, Thea, for her closing remark with me. Thank you very much.